Hello, everyone. I often see topic proposals for doctoral level research, and I also get the question, hey, what about my topic? What do you think about it? Is this a workable topic? These are interesting questions, and I want to share some perspective with you today on how to think about a research topic and how to come to the conclusion if it's a good one or not. First of all, let's clarify the basic approaches to research. First, there's qualitative research. Qualitative research is asking questions. You're asking what is going on here. And it's kind of a constructionist viewpoint on life. Reality is what we perceive it to be. It's a phenomenological outlook. And when I think of qualitative research, I think of those magic eye posters we used to see in bookstores and malls in the 90s. If you look at it long enough, a big holistic view emerges that there's some deeply embedded meaning that could be extracted. And in qualitative research, we extract this from interview transcripts, from field notes, from analysis of documents created by research subjects. You do enough qualitative data analysis, the big picture will jump out at you. There's also quantitative research, and the key words I think when I think of quantitative research is the truth is out there. Data is collected from our world in order to test our hypotheses about reality. And this is positivist in outlook, that the truth is out there. It's just up to us to collect data and then evaluate it. So those are the basic outlooks. But now let me tell you a couple of different approaches to research, developing a research topic. And I think one of them is a bit easier than the other to get started. Let's take a look. First of all, on the left is the business research approach. Often you'll see this in books like Cooper and Schindler, that's all about business research. The second approach you'll see promoted by authors such as Creswell, which I consider the academic approach. In the business research approach, you begin with a problem, an issue, and a phenomena at work. You think about it. Maybe you state it in form of the problem statement, develop a research question, and then you study the literature, understand the underlying theory, the theoretical framework. Then you think about your methodology. You collect data. This makes sense, and I think this all, for business people who are not typically researchers, this is how things are done in business. You have a problem, you collect data, you analyze it. It's all in an attempt to solve the problem. The difficulty of using the business research approach is it's difficult to establish a clear link between your research question and the underlying theoretical framework and the literature. That's a gap that's really hard to breach because sometimes you can find a problem or an issue at work. You can think of a research question and it's not really something that lends itself to a lot of academic analysis, and there may not be much literature on it. It may not be complex enough to have undergone doctoral level research in the past. It may not be sufficiently academic to do some doctoral level analysis. So making the jump between the problem you observe at work and the literature, the underlying theoretical framework, that's a difficult leap. The academic approach, it's much easier to make that leap to the theoretical underpinnings and the research underpinnings of your research question, but it's not necessarily centered on an initial problem observed at work. For example, the academic approach is you find a general area of interest, like for example, motivation, let's say. Then you study the literature. You find, you collect a number of academic journal articles. These are empirical studies published in peer-reviewed journals. You find articles that speak to you. Oh, this is an interesting study. I really like those findings. You find a few of those. Then what do? You look at the references, the citations in each article. You discover the thread or trajectory of research over the years, how that body of theory has evolved as people have asked different research questions, collected findings, analyzed it, made suggestions for future research. And as you do this, you can find areas of interest that need more work, gaps in the literature. areas that should be restudied, maybe replicated in a new context. This also helps you develop your methodology because you'll see examples of methodology in the literature. And then it's only after that you conduct your research. This is kind of like, you've heard the saying from Isaac Newton, if I have seen further, it's because I'm standing on the shoulder of giants. This is where you find the shoulders first and then climb up on it and build on what's gone before. So you can see approach one, it's great at honing in on a problem, but it's difficult linking that problem to the body of research that's already gone, the underlying theoretical framework, and finding an angle to your business problem research that does fill gaps in the literature, whereas the academic approach does that automatically, but it doesn't emphasize the problem quite so much. You really need to think about both approaches because you cannot have a doctoral level study until you can demonstrate that it requires doctoral level analysis, it fills gaps in the literature, there's an underlying theoretical framework, etc. So, given these scenarios, whenever I'm asked this question, is my research topic a good one? To me, this is like saying, what do you think of the tip of the iceberg? Because a topic is only as good as what's underneath that iceberg. I need to know, what are the research questions? What are the variables of interest? Variables meaning, if I change one thing, does the other thing change? For example, cigarette smoking and lung cancer. The more you smoke, the more people smoke, the more likely lung cancer cases will exist. That's X and Y variables. What is the body of literature? Does it exist? What's the underlying theoretical framework? What methodology is being proposed? What population will you gather your data? And how will you collect it and analyze it so you can answer the research questions? So unless I know something about what's under the iceberg, I can't really say anything about the tip of the iceberg. But if I'm asked, and I know about all these things, and if you know all about these things, you can answer that question yourself. You can satisfy yourself if the research question or the topic is a good one, if you have a good handle of what's underneath the iceberg. Another analogy I like to use is building a house. If research is like building a house, and you ask, what do you think of my topic or title? To me, that's like asking, how do you like the curtains on this window? When what you're really talking about is building a house. And the curtains are important, but it's not the most important. What is the most important? The underlying theoretical framework, the body of literature, the variables in your study, the research questions, the methodology you will use. That's all extremely important, and you have to know something about that until you can really propose a topic. And what I've observed, throughout the years is many topics are presented without this level of analysis of the underpinnings of the research literature. That, for example, motivation, I just have to mention that one. That's an example of something that's been studied for more than 50 years in so many different settings and contexts. For someone to propose something like that, it would tell me that, okay, you've got an idea for the topic, but maybe you haven't really dug into the literature, because if you did, you would find that hundreds, maybe thousands of studies have been conducted, and it's going to be a challenge to find some specific angle that adds to that body of knowledge. Okay, so some of these common topics often tell me that what we're really talking about is the tip of the iceberg, not underneath the iceberg. What we're really talking about is the curtains and not the house building project. So that's something to think about when it comes to basic approaches to research, evaluating if your topic is a reasonable one, understanding what your research questions are and how to determine if they're valid or if they make good sense in terms of a doctoral research project.